Have you ever felt guilty for wanting more from life, even when you have so much to be grateful for? Stay tuned for a compassionate reframe that may change the way you think about growth, fulfillment, and desire. Welcome back to the Resilient MD, the podcast and YouTube channel where we have honest conversations about medicine, burnout, resilience, and how to care for others without losing ourselves in the process. I'm your host, Dr. Anna McDowell, certified life coach, allergist, and firm believer that small changes can create massive ripple effects. I'm so glad you're here today because we're exploring a topic that many women quietly think about but rarely say out loud: wanting something different. Not because your life is bad, not because you failed, but because growth has a way of changing what fits. And sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is be honest about what we truly want. Over the past 6 months, we spent a lot of time talking about awareness. We spent time learning how to recognize what has been quietly happening beneath the surface. But eventually, awareness leads to one new question: not what's wrong, but what do I want? And for many women, that question feels surprisingly uncomfortable. Because sometimes the hardest truth to admit isn't that you're tired, it's that you want something different. In my experience, many women can admit exhaustion more easily than they can admit desire. Exhaustion feels acceptable. People understand exhaustion. Exhaustion sounds responsible, even. But desire can feel selfish, especially for women, especially for physicians, especially for women who have spent decades caring for everyone else. Many women can easily say, I'm overwhelmed, but struggle deeply to say, I want more, or I want something different, or even, I don't want my life to look like this anymore, because immediately guilt appears. High achieving women, especially physicians, learn very early that being responsible meant managing expectations, being realistic, being practical, being grateful, and those are valuable qualities. But sometimes they become so dominant that desire gets pushed away completely. You become skilled at asking what needs to be done, what does everyone else need, what is realistic, what is expected, but much less skilled at asking what excites me, what energizes me, what feels meaningful now, what would make my life feel more like mine. For many women physicians, this is especially true. The path into medicine often requires years of postponing personal desires. You delay gratification every step of the way. You delay rest, you delay freedom, you delay hobbies, you even delay relationships, and you delay yourself. And after enough years, it becomes difficult to remember what your desires are and that they matter too. One thing I see often in coaching is women confusing gratitude with obligation. They tell themselves, I should be grateful. And perhaps they are. Grateful for their career, their family, their accomplishments, their opportunities. But gratitude and settling are not the same thing. You can appreciate what you've built and still want something more aligned. You can honor your accomplishments and still desire change. You can be thankful and still acknowledge that something no longer fits. Those truths can coexist. And what often happens is many women need permission to hold both. Let's sit with that for a moment. What if wanting more doesn't make you ungrateful? What if wanting more peace, more freedom, more time, more joy, more presence, more flexibility doesn't mean you fail to appreciate what you already have? Think about that. What if simply means you are human? because human beings are meant to evolve. And as we evolve, our desires evolve too. The life that fit you at 30 may not fit you at 50. The definition of success that motivated you 10 years ago may no longer feel meaningful today. And that isn't failure. That is growth. As many of you know, this year I made one of the hardest decisions of my life. I stepped away from clinical medicine, not because I hated medicine, not because I wasn't grateful, not because I regretted my career. Quite the opposite. I loved what medicine gave me. I loved my patients. I loved helping people, and I still do. But eventually, I had to admit something difficult. The life I wanted moving forward was different from the life I had built. And that was incredibly hard to acknowledge. Because for years, I thought wanting something different meant something was wrong, and something was wrong with me. I thought it meant I wasn't appreciative enough, committed enough, strong enough. But eventually, I realized the truth was much simpler. I was changing, and my life needed room to change too. Before we move on, I want to pause for a moment. I'm curious, have you been feeling exhausted, discouraged, or frustrated and not quite sure why? Are you quietly wondering if this is just how life in medicine has to be? Well, I see you. You don't have to give up on yourself or your dreams. And the good news is that you don't have to figure it all out alone. I built a 6-week one-on-one coaching program designed to help women physicians gently remove the barriers keeping them stuck and rediscover clarity, balance, and purpose. It is called the Resilient MD, just like the podcast and YouTube channel. If you are ready, you can begin today. Schedule your free clarity call. The link is in the show's notes. One of the most important things I want listeners to understand is this: desire is simply information, not instruction, just information. Just because you want something does not mean you must act immediately. And just because you notice a longing does not mean you need to blow up your life. But your desire deserves curiosity because often they point towards something important: a neglected need, a forgotten value, an immersion version of yourself. Sometimes desire is simply your future self knocking quietly on the door. This is actually one of the reasons coaching can be so powerful. Most women physicians are incredibly skilled at analyzing problems. They can diagnose, strategize, problem solve all day long. But many have never been given a safe space to explore desire without judgment. A space where nobody immediately says, that's unrealistic, that is selfish, that's irresponsible, that is impossible. A space where the question becomes, what do you actually want? Not what should you want, not what others want for you, not what sounds impressive, but what feels true. Because sometimes the most transformative thing a woman can do is give herself permission to answer that question honestly. This quarter is not about radical reinvention. It's not about impulsive decisions. It's not about abandoning responsibility. It is about permission: permission to listen, permission to want, permission to imagine, permission to consider other possibilities that you've been dismissing for years. And honestly, that's where change often begins. Not with action, but with permission. As we begin this new season together, I want to leave you with a simple question. Not what should I do? Not what is realistic? Not what will make everyone else happy? Just what do I want? And if that question feels uncomfortable, that is okay. You don't need the answer today. You only need the willingness to ask. Because sometimes the most courageous thing a woman can do is admit that she wants something different and then give herself permission to explore what that might mean. Remember, my wings grow when I listen. Know someone who might need this reminder today? Share this episode with them. And in next week's episode, we'll explore one of the biggest barriers to personal transformation. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Before you leave, make sure to download the free People Pleasing in Medicine Reflection Guide because sometimes awareness begins simply by finally asking yourself the questions you've been too busy to hear. You'll find it in the description. And if this episode was helpful for you, could you do me a quick favor? Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or your favorite platform and like this video on YouTube. It only takes a second and helps this podcast so much. And if you feel really generous, write some review for us too. A positive one, right? Because that really goes a long way. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. And thank you for giving yourself permission to imagine a life that fits you more fully. I'm Dr. Anna McDowell, a resilient MD just like you. I'll see you next week.